I wanted to talk about horoscopes, personality, and the workplace because I've mentioned it briefly in books and other articles I've written before, kind of being dismissive of horoscopes, but I never really realized how many people actually still believe them or follow them or think horoscopes are a good predictor of human behavior or personality or are a useful tool in assessing and understanding people in the workplace. And I've had some experience recently where I'm realizing that people believing in horoscopes or using horoscopes to understand themselves and other people in the workplace is actually a bit more widespread than I realized. So I think it's worth talking about because I always thought it was a bit of a niche thing that a few people believed, but no one really took seriously. Now, that is not true, apparently. So I really want to talk about horoscopes in the context of they are not good predictors of personality. When you're born, your time of birth, your place of birth is not necessarily a good predictor of any sort of variables like personality or motivation or factors that are really important for the workplace and really not related to your star sign. And I think this is worth talking about because there has actually been a huge amount of research on this. It's not one of those areas where psychologists or scientists go, oh, we won't really ever talk about that or look at that. There's been a massive amount of research, and some things like people's date of birth or age or those kind of factors are actually included in most psychological research and controlled for. It's a really good question to ask. Is someone's year of birth, month of birth, day of birth, season of birth, whatever time of birth, a good predictor of different traits, characteristics? Does it contribute to understanding of psychology? And the answer is not really. Right? There's all sorts of things that age does predict really well, right? So your birth year might predict your height up until a certain point. So if you're 5 years old or 10 years old, your age, your date of birth is actually a fairly good predictor of your height because people grow and develop and they get taller over time. So older people tend to be taller up until a certain point. You know, your age is a good predictor of your income because as people progress in their career, they make more money, they get more experience, they are more likely to get promoted. So there's things like that that, again, age does predict. It's not because of your star sign, it's not because of where Uranus was, it's because of your age and experience and all sorts of other factors that contribute to, income or career development or career success. But one of the problems with horoscopes is they tend to be presented as true, and there's a lot of psychological reasons why people do believe them. But even when people are a bit skeptical or think they're a bit of fun but still kind of play around with horoscopes and maybe listen to them half-heartedly, there's still a lot of people who do take them very seriously and make decisions about jobs and careers and relationships and personal development based on their star sign, which is really a problem because it's actually misinformation and it's at best useless, but it's at worst giving people bad or incorrect information. One of the things that horoscopes do is give people what's called Barnum statements. So they're kind of generic statements that are true for most people at most times or will be true of most people at certain times. So it's things like, oh, you like to be around people you care about, but sometimes you can be a bit shy or introverted. That's true of most people depending on the situation. Or maybe it's you're going to have some conflict with your family in the future. That's true of most people in a lot of situations. It's not necessarily happening every day for everyone, but most people are going to experience that. Oh, you're going to have a bit of a career crisis. You're going to worry about the direction of your future relationships or your career, or you might have some conflict with colleagues or whatever. I mean, if you say these things, you print them in a horoscope often enough, they're going to be true fairly often for a lot of people. So people tend to forget the predictions that aren't true, especially when they're, constant weekly, daily horoscopes. But remember the ones that did seem true for them. They'll go, oh yes, this was right because I did just have a fight with my partner last week, or I had some conflict at work, or work was really stressful, or I had some financial difficulties, and that's what my horoscope said, so I remember that. So it's obviously right. It's obviously correct. But it's really picking up on the hits when they're general information that is going to be accurate for a lot of people a lot of the time. And one of the things about psychological models of personality traits is they have to be falsifiable and they have to be actually predictive of abilities of personality, of outcome variables, which means they have to be really specific about people. So if you take a personality trait like conscientiousness, you say, you are very organized. You're more organized than most of the people around you. You tend to be better organized than your colleagues, and you are rarely, if ever, late for meetings, right? That is easily verifiable or falsifiable. You can say that's not true of that person. It's not really true of their behavior. And the opposite is true of them. They are always late for meetings. They are very bad at planning. They never seem to know what's going on around them. And they are not very conscientious. But you can make real predictions about behavior that are consistent and continuous in the long term that you can actually evaluate and say, yes, this is true of this person's behavior, but it's actually not true of most other people. It's something that distinguishes their behavior, that makes it easily identifiable and quantifiable, not things like you might have some conflict with your colleagues sometime in the future because you're a Pisces or you're an Aries or an Aquarius or whatever. You can't make meaningful predictions about people's personality or their behavior or their work outcomes or their relationships based on horoscopes. It just doesn't work, and many scientists and psychologists have tried to do it. Because if it did work, it would be incredibly useful. If we could say, okay, you were born on September the 12th, this is who you are, then we could take all sorts of shortcuts and it would be easy to, put someone in a career or a relationship or a marriage when they were 2, 3, 4 years old, because we'd go, okay, this is their personality, this is what they're like, this is what we know about their development, this is who they are. But it's impossible to do, and your star signs, unfortunately, have absolutely no predictive power and no scientific validity and should not be used to understand yourself or other people in the workplace.